welcome to another Monday episode of Beerfield Fantasy Football. I am your host at Hot BFF, Kris, joined by Dan, as we continue to try to be on a first-name basis. At Hot BFF with 2 P's, at Thurry BFF with 2 F's. Dan, freshly back from the land of polar bears and igloos in Canada.
Well, I mean, the better portion of the southern part of Canada is what some would say. But I'm back. I'm here. I'm wearing my Dangerous Man shirt. We'll be drinking a Dangerous Man beer when we get to that portion of the show. I survived.
Yeah,
I was not too hungover at a buddy of ours' wedding.
that was going to be my
drunk.
question is, did you survive that and how was it?
It was good. I ate too much food and got myself bloated. So I could barely,
So you didn't even
barely
get
able to
drunk.
drink.
Yeah, that's
the
worst.
I got kind of drunk. I got more drunk in the beginning of the wedding than I did towards the end. Hurricane, on the other hand, though, got white girl wasted, and it was hilarious.
Good. Doesn't recover as quick either at her old age. Congratulations, congratulations, Sean.
Yes.
You know, we established a nice little rivalry year one, and you kind of drive me fucking bonkers. But congratulations.
It drives everyone bonkers.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of the charm, honestly.
It really is. I mean, he means well.
Oh, yeah, I think he's a great guy. Just
ashholeless way. That's why I
Yeah.
love him so much.
Yep. Feel like I should hang out with him sometime and spar. Hey, we got a show for you today. I can't tell you if it's going to be good or not, but it's a show. We got some Dynasty check-ins on some value to go. We're going to talk to Jags offense with the return of Nick Foles, the surge of the Falcons defense, get into some injuries, and one that I'm not really convinced is an injury. Before we do that, though, follow the show at BeerfieldFF on Twitter, Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube. We do live streams. You can see our pretty faces. Come interact with us during the shows, etc., etc., etc. As far as the weekly winner goes, I had a terrible week. Dan had a less terrible week. So, Dan, you get to dish out punishments. 6.5 points to 3.5. Both of us had an injury affect those, hence the half point. But I was not right about a whole lot, and you were right about slightly more.
Yeah, that seems about. I mean, you were kind of due for an off week. Let's be real though. You went through 10 weeks beforehand. I think having a above average to good weeks.
Yeah.
Every now and then we slip up. Sometimes things just don't go our way. But I'm glad that I won, and I can't wait to make you drink a beer that's got lime in it.
That is the goal, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Beer that has lime in it. My absolute least favorite. See if I got something lying around. If not, I definitely know I can get those individually.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about what we're drinking today, though, which is slightly more pleasurable than what I'll be drinking on Wednesday.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, you mentioned you got some Dangerous Man. Tell us about Dangerous Man, the brewery. I know you visited, what you got to drink from them, where they're at, etc.
So Dangerous Man's from Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's one of the 2 breweries I was able to visit during my trip up to the Polar White North. I got on today. It's their buckwheat honey dark braggot. For those of you out there who do not know what a braggot is, I'm just figuring this out now. It's the combination of meat and beer. It's very unique. I've already had a couple sips so far, but I will get into more of my thoughts on this later on in the show.
All right, and I am drinking something that I may or may not have had on the show earlier this year. Like, I don't remember the beer specifically, but as soon as I tasted it, it kind of had a very familiar taste to it. Which either means I've had something similar or I've had this before, so maybe you'll remember. Dan, I'm drinking Earthbound's Chicken and Waffles Blonde.
That doesn't sound familiar at all to me, so I'm going to lean no.
It's an ale brewed with spices, but not chicken or waffles. So,
I mean, it sounds good.
Yeah. We'll give you a full review about midway through the episode. It's definitely got a unique taste to it, so we'll break that down for you. All right. Let's go ahead and start off the same way we always, well, No, not the same way we always start off. There is no news that's not injury related. Let's go ahead and talk some hangovers.
Hangovers.
All right, kind of a short segment this week as far as the hangovers are concerned. Starting off with Amari Cooper. He's still fighting through his knee injury. Just a 55% snap share against the Lions this week. Kind of nursing him a little bit, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, with the increased play of Gallup and Cobb, and by increase, I mean by better play between those two, you can kind of afford to let Cooper kind of be the number 3 and kind of be eased back into the role. Well, I think the Lions game seemed closer than what it was. I think the Cowboys started to pull away towards the second half, or I think by like third quarter or so in the second half. I'm not sure. So I think there was just reason for his lower snap count than usual.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to say. I think it was just as well. Gallup and Cobb definitely picked up the load. They weren't exactly having problems moving the ball. Driscoll and the Lions did keep it close, but no reason for to put your star wide receiver at further risk.
Yeah.
Sterling Shepard, full participant at practice on Monday. This is notable because we have not really seen him and Golden Tate at the same time yet this year. And the question when Golden Tate was signed is, how is this going to work? And we're about to find out.
I mean, let's just hope it lasts longer than a half. I mean, Sterling Shepard seems to be, one more hit away from being back to where he is. So I'm interested to see how it plays out, though, especially with Daniel Jones looking not as bad as we thought so far.
Yeah, Daniel Jones has been a little surprising. So
just little, though.
See if he can spread the ball out a little bit more. Lots of Colts here. Most injured team in the league, I think, as far as skill positions go. Eric Ebron was estimated as did not practice. I'm not sure what that is related to. Paris Campbell, obviously out with a broken hand. Jordan Wilkins listed as a DNP on the estimated injury report with an ankle injury. Marlon Mack broke his hand on Saturday. He had a procedure this morning.
Sunday.
What?
Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I said. Sunday. He had a procedure this morning to repair that hand. So he's out indefinitely, but it's not expected to be season ending, so who knows what that means. Jordan Wilkins does estimate he'll be ready to go for Thursday, but that is far from a guarantee. And no updates on Ebron or Campbell. T.Y. Hilton also estimated is not practicing, although he's chomping at the bit to get back in. So lots of Colts injuries.
Yikes. And still Jack Doyle put up a donut.
Yep. Well, they were ahead. So
yeah, I know, but still.
Yep. Austin Hooper reportedly has a chance to suit up in practice Thursday, as does Devontae Freeman. So neither one of them, they're both, quote, trending in the right direction. So keep an eye on that. It'd be an early return for Hooper.
Listen, that feels early.
It is.
Like, I thought that was like a 3 or 4 week, potentially.
It was a month-long
6
injury,
week, yeah.
And we're 2 weeks.
That's, he's trying to do his best Mahomes.
Right. Bengals wide receiver Auden Tate's in concussion protocol and also dealing with the cervical strain after he was carted off. He says he's good, but
bad.
Yeah, that looked bad. So you just stay away from Bengals.
Yeah.
Speaking of people you should stay away from the rest of the season, Juju Smith-Schuster injured his knee on the same play in which he suffered a concussion. Deontay Johnson's also in concussion protocol. So, that James White call that I made last week, not James White, James Washington, kind of the only healthy wide receiver.
Yeah.
Unless you believe in Johnny Holden.
It just depends what Mason Rudolph we get.
Yeah, he's not been great here lately.
He's been bad. It's not looking good.
Now he has a dent in his head.
Now he's got a permanent dent.
Yeah, we didn't get the chance to talk about that one.
We should probably talk about that one. I don't know if you talked about it on Sunday or not.
Is there really anything to say that hasn't been said?
No, I mean, if you really want to know people's, I feel like every single spectrum of this, like of someone's thought process has been discussed, and dissected and hated on Twitter.
If you were on Twitter, you had to have an opinion about that, which makes sense. That's what people are there for. But it's pretty universal. Mason Rudolph started shit he couldn't finish, but that's still no right to, swing your helmet at somebody not your helmet, his own helmet at him and use it as a weapon. So Myles Garrett, way out of line, lost his cool. Completely agree with the suspension for him. I think that the fine for Rudolph was the right call. That type of pushing and shoving does go on a football field all the time, so not too worried about that. He did take it a little bit over the top though, so I think the fine was necessary for him. Absolutely agree with what Pouncey got for not so much the swings, but kicking Myles Garrett in the head while he was down. Yes, It's being a good teammate, but that was going to come with consequences. And the only one I don't agree with was the Cleveland DT that got suspended for a game for running in and shoving Rudolph to the ground. Like, again, that just seems like part of the scrum. But everything else that came out of that, I agree with.
Yeah, I feel like it was just a message. For those of you out there who's living under a rock and didn't know of the punishment that came, Garrett suspended indefinitely for the rest of the season and playoffs. He is appealing it. My guess is he's trying to get an actual number put on it.
And I think it'll be rest of season. The CBA does not allow for indefinite suspensions under this, so I think that they will have to slap a number on it.
Yeah, I think it was said. Yeah, it's they don't allow indefinite suspensions on in-game actions. I think it's what it was.
Yeah.
And then Pouncey got 3, and then we just spoke about the other D-line guy. They're like, I had all this feel for it, and then I've kind of gotten over it since Thursday. So I think everything's just. I would have maybe given Mason a game, but that's just me.
You could have argued to give Mason a game. Again, the hit was late from Garrett. Ripping his helmet off, I think, warranted the fine. And the kick to the groin probably warranted a fine, but
it's over with.
You could argue it both ways. It was taking the thing that I don't agree with is that if Rudolph didn't get a game, I don't think that Cleveland's DT, I can't remember the name now, should have gotten a game either. I think that he should have just been fined as well. I think that the only suspension should have been Pouncey and Garrett.
Yep, I agree.
All right, moving on to the latest controversy. Bears quarterback Mitchell Trubisky suffered, quote, a right hip pointer on Sunday night. Nagy did confirm if healthy, Trubisky is absolutely the starter. I don't believe this was full on a hit pointer. I think that this was not trusting your quarterback.
I think, and I discussed this with Hurricane because she's also a Bears fan on the way home. I think he's hurt. I just think he could have played through it. And I think Nagy was just like, hey, bro, you suck. You haven't shown me anything in this game to suggest that you can come back from 10 points. So you're going to complain about a hip injury that you probably may have some sort of bruise there. And then I'm going to bench you and put in Chase Daniels, who it doesn't matter.
Didn't look any better.
Like I get it. There's 2 minutes left. I just think I think he's probably nicked up. There's no way that if Trubisky was playing well or, they were like Nagy felt confident that Trubisky could take him, could bring him back into that game, that he would have sat him. Like, to me, there's no way.
That whole game was just ugly, though. There were drops that shouldn't have happened on the offense, a couple missed field goals by the Bears, a lot of squandered opportunities that go well beyond Mitch Trubisky's fault. We'll deep dive into Trubisky here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram's leather walking boot could possibly play Week 12 against the Bears. He did not practice on Monday, so keep an eye on that. My guess is it'll probably be another week.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And Will Fuller expected to be a game-time decision versus the Colts. I would be surprised if he goes. If he's still that questionable, I'd say give him another week as well.
Yeah, I think give him the extra 10 days. It wouldn't surprise me given that this is a pretty important matchup for playoff and division implications, but we'll see.
We will see. All right, let's go ahead and get into the discussion segment. Pick your 6. This is the reason I like Mondays.
Pick your 6.
All right, Dan, you took something I had originally had written down, but we're going to kick it off and start by talking about Nick Foles' return to Jacksonville. And by a lot of accounts and me watching at least the red zone portions of the game, kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, like for me, it just... So the results from the game didn't really change much in what you got from Minshew. But it was a question a lot of people had. It was something that I think a lot of podcasts and writers will probably end up talking about to see what the implications came from this. I didn't put down Foles' number because to me it doesn't really matter. Fournette, though, season low in carries. You can probably say that's game script. He got 8. He still saw 7 targets, and he played on a season low 71% snap rate. Nothing to freak out there. Do you agree?
I completely agree with nothing to freak out about Fournette. It was negative game script. They were down early. There's an early turnover from Nick Foles. You know, it when you're playing from behind, you're not going to run the football a lot. So that I think was just related to the game, not directly related to Foles' return.
I agree. DJ Chark, something I was not as overly concerned with, but there was definitely conversation points to be brought up. He saw a season high 15 targets, caught a couple touchdowns, over 100 yards. Obviously, you can't expect him to get 15 targets. But he had 95% snap rate. It's pretty clear that no matter what, he's the number one receiver here.
Yep, he's the one. The 15 targets again because they were playing from behind. You'd normally expect that to be between 7 and 9 for him. But Foles not afraid to throw deep. They definitely showed some chemistry. He still showed his ability to separate. So, not concerned there.
And I guess the final 2 receivers, I didn't put tight ends down because I don't know what Josh Oliver did.
Josh Oliver's on IR anyway. He broke some bones in his back. They signed
that's
Nico
right.
Leary.
That's right. Anyways, so Conley versus D.D. Westbrook. This is kind of where I think people can try to draw from this. We know from Foles' past, especially with Philadelphia, he likes to push the football downfield. That tends to be or seems to be would fit in line more with Chris Conley when he's healthy. He was second on the team with 8 targets. He had one more snap than Westbrook or than Chark. Westbrook had 6 targets. The snap count shouldn't really matter between the 3 unless they decide to go with less than 3 receiver sets, which you would suggest would be if the games are close. I think he trailed Conley with just 7 snaps less than them. So again, I don't know if that's a big deal, but that's still something I want to watch to see if Jacksonville has the lead or the game's still within what their game script wants to be, and that's to use Fournette more. If we're going to see more Conley or more Westbrook, I don't know how much that's more fantasy relevant in terms of those 2 being productive, but with the cake schedule moving forward, there might be some deeper league flex value if we can figure out who steps up to be the number 2.
Yep. One other thing about this game before we move on in game script, the Colts absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage in this one. They were able to run the ball at will. Marlon Mack and Jonathan Williams both went over 100 yards. They were up early, and that forced Jacksonville into a position to throw. Nick Foles, I think it was 2 touchdowns. I want to say 296 yards, 1 interception, and a 70% completion percentage. So it's not that far off what you would have gotten from Minshew. Didn't really move the needle at all for all of that discussion. It was just purely a game script thing. So jury's still out here.
Did Josh Oliver get hurt in the game because he was their leading tight end?
He got hurt in the game. That's what I meant.
Okay. I was like,
sorry, I didn't mean that as he was on IR.
No, sure.
He was put on IR today.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to talk about then.
Yeah, he was put on IR today.
Right
with
on.
Fractured bones. All right. Probably the other big story coming out of, well, other than the Ravens completely drubbing the Texans, which we're not going to get into. That was just a weird game. But the other trend that we've got to talk about is the Falcons' defense. So the Falcons, over the last 2 weeks on defense, have been noticeably better. They held the Saints in check. They held the Panthers in check. So just to break it down, against the Saints, they allowed just 18 first down. The Saints have been averaging 20 a game. 52 rushes on 11 attempts. 52 yards on 11 attempts for the Saints. So 4.7 yards a clip. I'll pull all this together in a minute, so just digest the stats right now.
You're good.
304 pass yards, no pass touchdowns. The Saints have been averaging 1.5 a game. They sacked Drew Brees 6 times. Prior to Week 10 against the Falcons, the Saints had allowed just 12 sacks in 9 games. Or in 8 games, I guess. But they got after Brees 6 times. just 25% third down conversion rate for New Orleans. Moving on to week 11 against the Panthers, they got Kyle Allen 5 times and picked him off 4 times. The Panthers had been allowing just 3.2 sacks a game, I believe. Allen had just 5 interceptions in his previous 7 starts. So he about doubled up the number of picks, and they're after the quarterback again. 5.13 yards per attempt for the Panthers, but just 15 rush attempts. 325 pass yards allowed, no pass touchdowns. 1.42 pass touchdowns a game is what the Panthers are averaging coming in. Tying all that together, prior to the last 2 weeks, the Falcons had been allowing 2.1 pass touchdowns a game. They've allowed 0 the last 2 weeks. Prior to the last 2 weeks, they were averaging under a sack a game. They've averaged 5.5 over the last 2 weeks. 95 passes attempted against them the last 2 weeks versus just 26 rush attempts. No pass touchdowns allowed. They've been playing from ahead for the last 7 quarters, and they get the Bucks, Saints again, Panthers again, Niners, and Jaguars. So how do you recalibrate? Because I kind of know what I'm drawing from this. It looks like the defense has become bend, not break, to where your receivers are still going to get yardage, but they're not giving up touchdowns. Your quarterbacks are going to be under pressure, which is good for having the Falcons in fantasy, at least your fantasy team. And while the running game has been efficient against them, because teams are going down early, they're not actually able to utilize it.
It seems like I don't know what to think of it. You know, the Saints' dominant offense with Breeze, which should be, let me change it, should be dominant offense with Breeze in it. Carolina's been all CMC. I think Kyle Allen was a mixed bag. People really like the Atlanta's defense when they're healthy. I don't think they're that healthy yet, even.
They're not.
With comparison, it just seems like they went up against 2 preposterous offensive line, letting their defense create pressure, which is what they've been good at, what they should be good at. And that created turnovers. You get Tampa Bay next week at home on this 2-game winning streak that they're on. We know what Winston is. We know that a lot of yards, some touchdowns,
a lot of
some interceptions.
Bad offensive line too. He definitely gets
bad offensive line.
And then you get the 2 teams you just dominated against.
It's just it's interesting that it flipped this hard on them. Like the bye week changed something.
There were coaching changes actually.
Sure.
They flipped the wide receivers coach to, I believe, defensive backs, and they moved somebody else to linebackers coach. So they made some assistant coaching changes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I don't know if that's why they're getting more pressure all of a sudden, but that has definitely been the difference. You took a shot at it, and I don't know if it was based on film or what you'd seen or just a lucky guess, but that's exactly it. They've gotten more pressure, so they're sacking the quarterback, but also their offense has been able to play from ahead. And I think that right there is the biggest difference. They're playing from ahead, so the defense can pin their ears back. Other teams aren't able to rush the ball, and that pass offense has been very, very bend, don't break, which we've seen be successful.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what Tampa Bay does, and a team that wants to push the football downfield. They'll do whatever they take. They don't got a real resemblance of a running game, despite what people think about Ronald Jones. And they have a receiving core with tight ends that could really take a game over. The Saints, you can make arguments, if you create pressure on Breeze, you can really make them flustered. And I think they were at home. No, they were in New Orleans, which makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I go about this differently. I guess you got to have some sort of expectations of what you expect from the Bucs offense, but just like with the Saints and the Panthers, this offense can explode from any point in the game.
Yeah.
And I think it's a different style of offense they're going to see. They're not going to have a running game. They're going to lean on the passing game even more. So I'm still going to play Winston. You got to assume
you have to
some sort of shootout here, or not shootout here.
Well, and especially because wide receivers have been able to put up yardage, and Godwin and Evans, you got to assume are going to be able to put up yardage. There might be turnovers, there might be sacks, but I also don't hate Ronald Jones as a flex play because of what they're giving up efficiency-wise to the running back. It's just teams haven't been able to lean on their running game. So, I think it's a situation where teams are going to adjust to that, but I still think you have to put, a cap on some of the expectations against them, especially on, you got to believe going in now that running backs aren't going to get volume, even though they'll be efficient. And the wide receivers might put up a ton of yardage, but touchdowns are going to be scarce. Because that's what you've seen over the last 2 games against 2 offenses that have proven to be mostly capable and should have definitely been capable against the Falcons defense that was pretty bad going into the last 2 weeks.
Here's what I think you could see from Tampa Bay. I don't know what Jared Cook and Greg Olsen are in terms of blocking. But we know that O.J. Howard is being used more as a blocker because that's where his value is lied in as of right now.
Yep.
You might see more chips from both the tight ends with him and Bray and with the running backs. If creating pressure has been the biggest thing that has led to this resurgence of this Falcons defense, you may see Bruce Arians and his coaching staff have a lot more chips off the line, trying to slow down the pass rush, screens, draws, whatever you do. So I wouldn't be shocked if something gets corrected this week. I also wouldn't be surprised if Winston does what Winston has normally been or has done in the past, and that's be turnover machine.
One other note about this, by the way, is that the Saints and the Panthers have one very, very notable thing about them, and that's that their running back is very, very involved, mostly chipping and not actually going out on pass routes. That is a big part of both of those offenses with Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. I don't think the Bucs, I know the Bucs don't involve their running backs in the passing game as much, which means that they may be more willing to even keep a Ronald Jones in the backfield to block instead of, allow Cameron Brate, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans to run free, and even Scotty Miller, versus, sending their back out on pass routes and just kind of chipping.
It wouldn't surprise me if they're whoever their best pass blocking back is, especially within that game, not just what we've seen with grades and shit. Whoever looks the best that game gets the most snaps, and they'll use that as a way to let guys like O.J. Howard and Brate, and then obviously Godwin and Evans, and then whoever. I think Watson's their 3 at this point.
No, Scotty Miller.
Or Scotty Miller. Let those guys kind of, do their thing. You may see a low attempts of running the football unless they get up early or they find success there.
Hell, you may even see some 12 personnel where Brate's running routes and Howard's staying in.
Honestly, you should.
Yeah.
Like, I'm surprised. I'm not sure how much they've ran of those. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of that to kind of help combat.
Yep.
That pass rush.
All right, moving on to a combo segment. I don't have anything else here. We can do.
No, we're good.
I think we pretty much said everything we need to. All right, so I wanted to shed some light on some people that are not necessarily having great seasons, and I know you said you were going to throw some people in here as well, as to what do you do in Dynasty, because this is going to be something on a lot of minds. So I'll kick this off, and I'll let you fill in whatever you got in between my people.
Sure.
Cool. All right.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and start off with Zeke Elliott. This is a guy that's getting bit by recency bias. So kind of broke this up into the good and the bad, if you will. The good, Zeke's got 5 of his 10 games over 100 yards rushing. He's got a touchdown in 7 out of 10 games now. He's on pace for over 1,400 yards. But the last 2 games have been bad. Under 3 yards a carry, under 50 yards on the ground. That's with even run blocking efficiency, basically, year over year. His breakaway run rate is down almost 5%. Juke rate's down 6%. Evaded tackles per game is down by roughly 2. He's also seen a drop in yards created per carry. It largely coincides with more stacked boxes and less light front. And his target volume is way off pace with Tony Pollard actually seeing a role growing in this offense. So kind of expectations for Zeke. It's not really, buy, sell, hold, given the fact that there's a downtrend.
I think if you can get somebody concerned about Zeke, you trade for him. Dallas is the number 1 offense in football right now. And while Zeke's role has kind of diminished a little bit, it's probably better for his overall long-term there. They just gave him a 6-year contract. You don't want to feed him the 300-plus touches he had if you can avoid it. Tony Pollard has been more than capable in both the games to kind of be the spell back in both facets of the game. I mean, he's had over 100 total yards in all but 4 games this year. I don't know what he did, or I don't know what he did. Player profile doesn't have the stats up from this past game against Detroit, but he had 2 receiving touchdowns.
It wasn't great.
It wasn't great. Yeah, no. I see 45 yards. Yeah, so not a good production game. I think we all kind of expected the touchdowns to kind of balance out. He wasn't a high touchdown guy in the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. His rookie year, he blew up with those.
Yeah,
and then it's kind of fallen back down to that Le'Veon Bell type of range, just with how the Dallas offense kind of operates in the red zone. With Dak, will rush the football more if he can. And then you have Cooper, Witten, and Gallup, and those guys who can take red zone. I'm trying to scare the owner because I would get him for cheap if I could, because this is still a great offense. Touchdown opportunity should always be there, and I think we'll see what we saw from Minnesota a couple games ago. That would be a bad example. Never mind. Anyways, I'm still fine with Zeke.
That was a bad example. You're trying to wing it.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm still fine with Zeke also. I wanted to highlight this because I saw some negativity flying around Twitter, and I think it is recency bias because of the way the last 2 games have gone. Yes, the breakaway run rate is down. He's not been as elusive as he has been in years past, but there's a reason for it. The boxes are being stacked more. He's seeing less light front coverage. As this offense continues to pass, Dak continues to throw for 400 plus yards a game and a ton of touchdowns, and Cooper and Gallup and Cobb continue to work freely. That's going to spread back out for Zeke to be able to get his a little bit. And the additional wide receivers have hurt his target volume, so you might have to reset expectations a little bit. But overall, a young guy that's on a 6-year deal, unless I'm a rebuilding team that really needs picks, I'm not running out to sell him. So I think it's more of a whole than just, don't let the last 2 games scare you off or jump that quick. Because recency bias is a huge thing in fantasy, so it's important to remember that he's actually on pace yardage-wise as a rusher to be about where he had been in years previous, even without the breakaway runs and the higher stack front carry rate.
Yeah, like I just said, teams are going to sell out to stop Zeke. That's one way, and that's until Dak continues to prove that he can likely lead this team to more wins than not.
Done that before, and kind of couldn't make Dak beat you. Well, now Dak can actually beat you.
Yep.
All right, what do you got?
I'm going to throw out Allen Robinson. And I think you didn't mention Mitchell Trubisky, so I'm wondering if we're going to get to that talk too.
Mitchell Trubisky is my last guy.
Okay, so we'll just some nuggets here. He was a very popular buy low guy coming into this season. A lot of that had to do with Nagy year 2, Trubisky year 3, and year 2 within that offense, and people just expected that things were going to get better. While he's been better overall, he's having a career year with his catch rate at 66%. Whether they're using him more makes a lot more sense. Is he's not getting as much of those 50-50 targets, or letting him, use his ability to create separation and also body position people for that higher count. In the season alone, he's on pace for 138 targets, 91 catches, and over 1,000 yards. Touchdowns are always going to be fluky, and on a struggling offense, you just can expect that to actually be a thing. But with the unknown of Trubisky moving forward, with the unknown of even Matt Nagy, if the Bears struggle next year, because I think Nagy will obviously make it through this season, if the Bears come out flat next year, you may see a coaching change. And this will all doubt affect Robinson even more so. I believe he's 27 years old. What are you doing with Allen Robinson?
Probably a hold for a couple reasons. First off, I don't know what the Bears cap situation is. Hold on. They have an out.
I'll pull it up.
They have an out on him after this year for only $2 million in dead cap space. If they wanted to take it, he's an unrestricted free agent after next season. So, having deep dove into Trubisky, which we'll get to here in a minute, I think that you have to hold him because I think his value can be higher than what it is. But right now, it's going to be relatively low on an offense that's struggling, as Dan mentioned. Yes, he gets the target volume, but even with that target volume, still just a wide receiver too. And if they ever were to figure life out, which there will definitely be some offseason changes coming to do that, then I think that I think that Allen Robinson has a chance to raise kind of his value. That's what the word I was looking for. He's got a chance to raise that a little bit going forward, and I just don't think you're going to get enough for him right now to warrant selling him, especially in the sense that the Bears have an out. If they decide to move on from him for any reason or try to trade him or something along those lines, because they don't have they don't have high round picks or anything.
Yeah. So as per Sports Track, what we kind of use to see.
That's exactly where I was.
Yeah. So for 2020, the Bears are going to be projected as of right now. If everything was to start today with no changes, they'll be fifth lowest. Well, they'll have the fifth lowest in cap. I think we said Robertson's going to free up around $11 million if they decide to get rid of him.
Yeah, with only a $2 million dead cap.
Yeah, so there's
high probability
if they're in a cap crunch and they want to, and if they're happy with the receivers they have now, with Trubisky struggling, I don't think taking away his number one receiver would be the best move if you're going to keep onto him and not make those changes.
I don't think it would be the best move either, and I think that they have needs, but they also, because of the Khalil Mack trade, don't have a first rounder. So, I don't know what you can flip him for in a deeply talented wide receiver class. So it really depends on which way they go. That's why I was curious how crunched they are and how much incentive they have to free up $11 million.
Yeah, right now they'd be 13 mil above cap.
Right.
It'd be a 13 million. I think that's what it is. Anyways, would you buy him if you don't own him? Would you be willing to take the chance on trying to get?
I'd absolutely try to buy him low. I mean, look, if they turn their stuff around, he's such a big part of the offense, and you see it when they decide to try to move the ball downfield, that he's worth taking a flyer on. And if he moves on, then you're just going to re-catch a hype train, because he has flashed. He has absolutely not been the problem with this offense. Every time he's been given an opportunity, he's made good on it. He's looked every bit the part of being a productive wide receiver, just in an unproductive offense.
Yep.
All right.
That's all I got of him.
Okay. I wanted to take a look at Sony Michel. So, Sony Michel, by most accounts, having a down year. He is not what you paid for. He's not what he was last year. He is, however, he's more involved in the receiving game. He's already matched his target and reception totals from last year while increasing his yardage and yards per reception by almost 2 per entering Week 11. Red zone touches are even year over year at 3.3 a game, as are carries at roughly 16 a game. So he's not getting less work despite his struggles. And defenses have largely shifted to stack fronts against him. The run blocking efficiency is even. Mostly it's about down a point, but defenses are more shifted to trying to stop him when he's actually in the game. Is the Patriots really haven't been able to open up a whole lot of running room or a whole lot in the passing game. It is also encouraging that you are seeing kind of an uptick in his targets and his usage in the receiving game. Now, he has also matched last year's touchdown total, so red zone carries staying level. That's obviously paying off. The bad part, yards per carry is down by 1.2 yards per attempt. That's because they're stacking the box against him. Breakaway run rate has been absolutely terrible both seasons, 3.3 and 2.1% respectively. That is not good. Juke rate down roughly 5 percentage points. He's evading fewer tackles. And 1.85 yards created per carry was third last season. He's down to 48th this season. So, less efficient, evading less, not creating for himself. But I think if his usage in the passing game keeps going up, he can kind of open things up a little bit more. And they can't so much key on that ability as a runner. But what's your take on Sony Michel?
They need to move him to to become a pass catcher. That was a bit of his role in college. I mean, I know the stats may not show up, but I think that's how he was used his freshman year when Todd Gurley was still there, and then because of how they run their running backs there, he didn't get a bunch of work. But that was kind of what they thought. A lot of people thought that he would end up becoming because of the durability concerns for him with his knee issues. They drafted Damian Harris, but hasn't really had a chance to shine. He's been hurt for most of the year. You have a very, very talented running back group coming in right now. Would not be shocked if New England goes that route, they draft a guy to be more of that grinder role and let Michelle take over or even become what Deion Lewis was for this team. And that's their main pass catching back who can also take on some of the running game role as they try not to use him as much. So this was always my concern with Tony Michelle, which is why after last year I wanted to sell him. I think you're going to see that more as he gets older. It's just really going to fall on what they do with James White and what James Wright contract situation looks like, and if he's somebody that they'll look to part ways with.
Yeah, I think he's given the way that his usage is kind of shifting, that he's a pretty decent buy low candidate. He's kind of like Allen Robinson in the sense of where I don't think you can really sell him. But I think if they find the niche in which to utilize him, because you're right, 69 receptions in college. His sophomore and junior year, he was over 20, which is actually a lot for college football, just the way that goes. They don't really have an incentive to cut James White. Looking at his current contract, they only save about $3 million in doing that. They don't have an out per se, which why would they want one? But I think the Deion Lewis role or maybe an absence of a guy like Rex Burkhead could help. But I really think that just him proving his worth as a pass catcher more to where they can't just key on him is gonna be key for Sonny Michel going into next year. He's got to open up some of that stacked front to get him room as a runner, but continue to produce as a passer. And I think the progression he's made in the passing game, or the receiving game rather, is helped his stock.
Yeah. So I think for him, if you're going to buy low on him, I think you have to understand what you're likely getting. And it's that if they keep him in the same role that he's in, he's very game script dependent. And there's always a higher risk of injury just because of the amount of touches that he could get in any sort of time. If they can, move around his role a little bit more, maybe draft somebody or bring somebody in, or just have Damian Harris end up becoming that we thought he could become, and that's to take on more of that first and second down role, and let Lewis get in that, that 12 to 15 touch range, and it just have it be more of a mixed bag with pass catching work. It's just it's. We kind of know what New England's offense is, and we know that Brady has his preferences for the guys he wants out there, and within their own roles. I think if you're going to buy Michelle, I think you have to understand what you're getting and don't try to overpay. And I would even try to throw him in as just a throw-in piece.
Yeah,
a lot of people are going to be off him, just as you mentioned, with how his struggles have been this year and what we've seen, just how game script dependent he can be.
I would reckon you can probably get him for probably a third round pick plus a little bit.
If you can do a third round pick plus a throw-in guy, or just a young guy with some potential upside, maybe I don't know any named off the top of my head. There's probably a bunch out there. Or even if you're a championship team, dangle a late 2022nd. I mean, I know like those are so highly sought after at this point, and maybe which is for good reason because of how deep this upcoming class is. But
second would work as well.
To get a guaranteed starter that should give you at least 12 to 15 touches when healthy in a negative game script game can at least provide you some depth, which is really what you want if you're a championship team.
Yep. All right. Who do you got?
Last one for me, I just got two, and that's going to be, it's not so much of a negative, but it's going to be one that brings a bunch of unknown coming out of this year, and that's going to be Ronald Jones. We talked about him a little bit with how we feel about him against the Falcons next week. But, in terms of Dynasty, we got to see him come on. He's got career highs across the board at this point with how bad his rookie year was. what we know of the upcoming class, especially for running back, where you kind of have to reevaluate what a day 3 pick is worth because of it. And there's always a fear that Jones could be replaced. I'm trying to sell high on him right now in a couple leagues that I have him in, if I'm not contending. Is that something that you would do with the knowledge of what's coming up? Or are you going to try to, take a gamble on the Bucs trying to, increase or trying to build on their offensive line and to build on their defense and not even waste a draft pick on a running back this year?
So if the Bucs spend a high-round draft pick, it's going to be on a quarterback. Otherwise, they need to rebuild their offensive line and spend those picks on defense. I don't think the Bucs are going in drafting a running back.
Okay.
Ronald Jones, by the way, and just to frame this up a little bit, run blocking efficiency is 58.7. That's 44th in the league. Meanwhile, he is 24th in juke rate, 24.4%, 29th in evaded tackles, 21st in evaded tackles with 29, 3.2 a game. Breakaway runs have not necessarily been there. He's better than Sony Michel. We'll put it that way. But in negative game script, he's created 169 yards, 1.42 yards per carry for 24th. Those are all very encouraging numbers. He's also doing very well against stacked front and against light front. So overall, very encouraging numbers. You've seen progression from Ronald Jones in the passing game. You've seen progression from him as a runner. The underlying efficiency looks great, especially if the Bucs can make some improvements around their interior offensive line and their run blocking. I think they're better served spending draft picks elsewhere, and I am holding Ronald Jones.
Okay. So I'm assuming if you can get him for a relatively fair price, you take a gamble on him then?
High upside, yeah. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Especially if I'm a rebuilding team that's a year or two away from contending, I'm absolutely going to take a shot on Ronald Jones. Like I said, the underlying numbers are good. If they can improve the offensive line in front of him and improve some of that run blocking, I think he's got a chance to be a top 10 back.
This is going to be one of the biggest storylines I'm going to be watching, not just through the draft, but through free agency as well, is if the Bucs, because I don't think there's a threshold for me to not be a little bit concerned if they draft the running back. Like if they take one in day 3 and round 6 or 7, there might be some concern. But I mean, it won't be obviously as much as like a day 2 pick. They're not spending a day 1 pick on it. It'd be fucking insane. Well, I don't even think they spend a day 2. I think if they draft the running back, it'll be in that 4th to 5th round range, in that kind of like range, and it may be cause on if somebody falls.
And let's be clear, almost everybody takes a running back, but you got Jameis
that's true,
Winston that's going to be an unrestricted free agent after this season. They're taking a quarterback if they get the chance. I don't think they pay Jameis on anything more than a bridge deal.
They shouldn't, but we'll see. I mean, we've seen guys like Tannehill and Dalton get, these odd contracts that have come back to bite people in the ass, even though they haven't quote unquote earned it. So, but I do agree with you that they're going to at least take somebody, and they'll draft a quarterback. It just depends where.
Yeah.
Maybe Tua with him falling down with his injury.
The hip injury. Yeah, it absolutely could be. If anything, I see Jameis, if he does get re-signed, getting the same type of deal that Bortles got from Jacksonville on just a 2-year, hey, prove it or you're out.
So I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe they trade for him. Maybe they don't want to use the high draft pick and they try to take a shot on like a guy like Minshew if Jacksonville's trying to capitalize on his value.
I actually had a conversation with Shane from DFF.
Did you?
Well,
I think I saw it a little bit.
A little bit of a Twitter exchange. Not really an exchange, just thoughts on Minshew and whether Jacksonville would be ready to trade him or not. What are your thoughts on that? They're willing to trade him.
If they're sold on Foles, you have to cap. Like the whole reason why you draft a quarterback in those type of rounds is because of what happened with Foles. You want a guy to be able to come in and actually be of something value. But then also to do what the Patriots have done with Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett, and that's dangled a high value position in front of teams that need it.
Yep.
Tampa Bay would clearly be in line for something like that. There's other teams out there, even teams that may not think you need one right now. A team like Carolina, if they get rid of Cam Newton, they just drafted Will Gray. Maybe Atlanta with Matt Ryan if they don't feel confident with him moving forward, or if they want to get younger and do that whole rebuild thing with that as well. There's a lot of value in trading a quarterback who's shown enough to be a potential starter.
Yep, Cincinnati is a potential landing
draft.
spot.
What's that?
Cincinnati would be a potential landing spot.
Cincinnati as well, yes.
And that was kind of my exact answer as well, is depending on how Foles does rest of the season, if they have reason to believe in Nick Foles, they don't have a good out on Nick Foles. So they've kind of already committed that. If they can flip Minshew for some good ROI on a 6th-round pick, not that they really need draft picks right now, I think they're in good shape.
I mean, you take anything. Draft pick, young stud player.
Yep.
If there's rumors of them taking a quarterback, day one, even one, really early day 2 in the 2nd round, there's going to be teams I guarantee you right now, there's probably teams calling, saying what's Minshew's value. Obviously they can't trade right now, but
calling anyway. You take another late round quarterback to try to groom as your backup or sign one off the street, and here you go, Nick Foles. Especially if he produces at an equivalent level or higher than Minshew. All right, Mitchell Trubisky. I said we'd get to him, so this is more of a super flex buy sell trade, and same way. We're gonna look at the bad and the good. First off, the good mostly. Accuracy rating is actually up for Mitchell Trubisky. That's from 2.9 to 7.1 per player profiler. 7.1, well above average as far as accuracy goes. True completion percentage is up slightly, which takes drops out of the equation. Play action and red zone completion are down, as is his pressured completion. So, look, there's been plenty of pressure there. He hasn't been throwing from a clean pocket a lot, and you did see him have some success on play action last week. But it's overall his completion percentage statistics and his accuracy statistics are actually up. Now, kind of where it gets ugly. Also, another good note. Sorry, I'm jumping around. But interceptable passes and danger plays down considerably. Well, why? Air yardage metrics are almost universally down. He's scrambling less, which could be a result of the shoulder injury. But back on the good side, bad throw percentage has improved. Even though he's getting basically no help from his receivers. They've dropped 5 more passes than all of last season already, despite separating at the same clip. So to kind of pull all that together, because I was a little all over the place, accuracy generally is up for Trubisky. The bad throws, the interceptable passes, the danger plays, all down, but they're being way more conservative with him, and he's not rushing nearly as much or scrambling nearly as much. So, despite the bad season, there are some positive signs there with him.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna.
No. For me, I don't think that despite the calls for the Bears to sign somebody or anything that they're going to move on from Trubisky right away. Look, we've seen teams that you spend a 1st-round pick that you trade up for, especially when your GM and your head coach are still there currently, especially the GM that drafted him. Not likely that they're going to move on or eat that mistake or be ready to until at least his rookie deal's up. Quarterbacks are expensive. They might draft somebody behind him and insulate it, but he's not going to come in and get the starting job yanked from him right away. So you kind of got to take the good and lean on that. I'm not trading for him because I don't trust the way the play calling's gone, but I think it is a hold given the fact that the accuracy has been better, that the wide receivers have not been as good, and that his decision-making, at least by the metrics, appears to have gotten better, despite the fact that the receivers are dropping more passes and he's completing less in the air and rushing less. Like, the offense is a dumpster fire, but a lot of people say it's a dumpster fire and it's not Mitch's fault. And deep diving that, I kind of tend to agree with that the offense is a dumpster fire and it's not entirely Mitch's fault.
So here's my thoughts, because I think this is a really unique situation, and if we know one thing is that I don't think teams are as loyal, and they can use the rookie deal on the other opposite end to get a high draft pick for a player that's been struggling, especially if they don't think that he's the future. See Josh Rosen for the Cardinals. But as for trading for him, selling or whatever, I'm not spending a first on him. I think there's some value there, because I think if he does get traded, or like he's not getting cut, but if he gets traded, he'll likely have a chance to at least compete for the starting job. This is a super flex, like if I can trade a 2020 second for him, I probably take that chance. Especially, if I'm a rebuilding team and I can, or if I have multiple 20s and I can give up a mid to late one for it, I think I'm fine with that. I'm not giving up a first for him. But to speak on his actual future of this, and this is what is really interesting to me, is that if the Cam Newton rumors are true, and they if the Panthers end up getting rid of him, whether getting cut or traded, and the Bears are the team that he ends up going to, there's a lot of value in a guy like Trubisky. I think they can get a second round pick for him. And this is in the actual NFL. I think there's teams out there that'd be willing to take that opportunity or chance because of what you pointed out. And that is not just on Trubisky. I think you have to build the right offense around him for him to succeed. You just can't throw shit at the wall and just hope that it works. I think there's some stuff you see from him, especially in the game against Detroit, where if things are working out fine and well, and he has the pieces around him, he can put up some success. I mean, he saw it just 2 years ago. Yes, it wasn't just him; it was the defense. But I think with the Bears' draft pick situation, and if a situation comes about that they can get a quarterback they like more, I think Trubisky's on the move. I don't think teams are as devoted to the rookie contract, to a T. They may use that to, as a leverage to get a high value draft pick, for said player. So
here's where I'm kind of going to come back on a couple of points you made there.
Sure.
First off, you mentioned Josh Rosen, and there's one very, very important thing that went into play with the Josh Rosen trade, and that is the head coach / GM changed.
Yep.
A different regime came in that wanted to run the offense and everything differently, and there was no way that Josh Rosen was going to fit that offense. Let's see. What was the pick compensation for Rosen? Do you remember?
It was an early second.
Okay. So, yes, the Bears don't have a first. Yes, it's a deep quarterback draft class. Allegedly. I mean, quarterbacks are kind of finicky.
I mean, you lose Tua, it really changes how people can say about
so Tua's prognosis after his surgery is that he should make a full recovery. There's a lot of misnomers going around on Twitter about it being exactly the Bo Jackson injury, and that was not the case. So, yes, the hip injury is going to drive his draft stock down a bit, but the prognosis and teams do their medical research is not nearly as dire on Tua as Twitter made it out to be.
I think it was based on the multiple lower body injuries that he's had over the last year and a half. I think it's what I draw from it.
It is, and that's not to say he's not going to fall, but the Bears don't have a pick until the second round. Likely early second round, but they don't have a pick until the second round right now, and you're not going to get a first rounder for Trubisky in his current state. There's a lot more evidence recently of quarterbacks struggling and teams sticking with them without a regime change than there is to counteract that. And you bring up Josh Rosen, but that was a regime change. You can look at in the Browns, every time that they moved on from a quarterback, it was a regime change. You look at Blake Bortles, you look at Jameis Winston, are the two that immediately come to mind as guys that have come out and struggled. They got to at least play through their rookie deal, and in some cases even longer and more so than what they should have. And the fact is that Trubisky being a number 3 overall pick, he's cheaper than most quarterbacks, but he's still not necessarily cheap. He's worth way more than what you're going to pay somebody to come sit in there as a backup necessarily. Rosen fell more in the draft than what Trubisky did.
I don't like so.
I just don't think that without Nagy or Pace getting fired, that there's a scenario where they don't live or die by Trubisky. That's not to say that they don't bring somebody in, but whoever they bring in is going to have to compete and try to win a starting job, not just get it. And I don't think that they can move him or will. I
fully agree. Josh Rosen was just off the top of the head as that's the last first round pick quarterback they got given up on too soon.
And I was racking my brain and couldn't really think of another one. I mean, Deshaun Kaiser, but he got cut.
And he was the first pick in the second round, I think. Yeah, no, that wasn't even the first pick. He was like in the other way. It just wouldn't shock me if something happens and they can get a chance, they can get their hands on a quarterback they think is better. They may not cut him or trade him. Not cut him. They may not trade him. I'm just saying that to his value point, they may bring somebody in that takes that job from him, and that's going to change. It'll obviously change a bunch around. But this is an elite defense. They may want to capitalize on a Super Bowl window type of defense. And if someone like Cam Newton, which I don't think will happen, but if it does, it wouldn't surprise me with a team that is in need of draft picks will utilize the rookie deal to move on from him. Okay. They won't do it just to do it if they don't have anybody else to replace him. That's just one point that could get brought out.
Well, let's have some fun with this, shall we?
Sure.
Want to have a little bit of fun?
Let's always have fun.
All right, let's go back to 2010 and look at first-round quarterbacks and name the ones that have struggled and what have happened with them. Let's have some fun here. Just because you're not going to think of people that have moved off the top of your head, so I want to see if I can find any more to counteract myself. Sam Bradford, couple good seasons with the Rams, couple in the injuries, and then nothing. They played it out with him.
Yeah.
Tim Tebow, regime change in Denver. Cam Newton was good. Jake Locker was mostly injury-related. Blaine Gabbert and Christian Ponder. I believe that neither one of them were traded. Again, going back a ways, but both of them definitely struggled.
They both got cut, but that was, again, not cut. That was the fifth-year deal, because that was the year they started to do the fifth-year option, I believe, was that year, I think.
Andrew Luck, obviously good. Robert Griffin. Injuries eventually ran out of his deal, signed as a free agent elsewhere. Ryan Tannehill, mediocre for years and then overachieved for a little bit. I just knocked my mic off. Finally just got out of Miami. Brandon Whedon, regime change in Cleveland, or about four of them. EJ Manuel, and probably what was the worst quarterback draft class ever.
My God, and Geno Smith. Oh my God, that year sucked.
And Mike Glennon, Matt Barkley.
Oof.
Nobody good in that at all. But anyway, EJ Manuel, I believe
he played through his rookie deal.
I think he played through his rookie deal with the Bills. Who else? Blake Bortles, we already talked about. Johnny Manziel, that was just a shit show. Teddy Bridgewater was good, so that kind of doesn't count. And then the knee injury.
And then he got,
Marcus Mariota, still on his rookie deal, or still with Tennessee. Jameis Winston, same thing. And then we get into Jared Goff. We all know that he's struggling again. Carson Wentz has been good. Paxton Lynch.
Forgot.
He got cut.
Paxton Lynch was a first-round pick. He doesn't count.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve it. Brock Osweiler, I think, too.
Kaiser was second round. We obviously know just beat Trubisky to death with Mahomes, Watson.
Yeah.
And then you get into things that are just not far enough out. But I mean, basically, point being, I think Josh Rosen is the only one that actually has been traded in the last 10 years there.
Exactly. And like I said, it's far-fetched. But I think also just because of where this defense, like, you get a Super Bowl caliber defense, and a team can get a bit impatient. See Vikings with Kirk Cousins and giving him that deal. They could have kept Teddy. I don't think Case was ever the long-term answer there. And that's the only other example I can think of.
And that was injury-related also. It wasn't underperformance. So.
Yep, exactly. So I don't think – to tie this up, I don't think he gets moved. I just wanted to paint a narrative that if the Cam Newton rumors deals are real, then I think there is some value in.
Well, we just talked about their cap space though with Allen Robinson. I don't know that they can pay Cam Newton and a rookie on a.
I don't even know if they would. We'll talk about the Cam situation when that comes up in the offseason, if that even comes up. I don't want to keep diving into a bunch of what ifs with this, but
I want to look at Trubisky's deal too.
Trubisky, it's a you're not paying a first for him in Superflex League. Please don't.
Yeah,
unless you're like in a 20-team league, I think
you're holding him.
You're holding him if you have him. Don't sell him for less than a. I wouldn't sell him for less than a first, but I wouldn't pay for him.
Yeah, it's 9.
I wouldn't pay for a first.
Pre 6-1's $9 million on dead cap with nothing in cap savings. Same thing with post 6-1 if they cut him. It's $9 million and nothing. And
okay.
It's, $4 million dead cap with a $4 million savings if they can somehow trade him.
I think if the Bears wanted it, they would figure it out. I mean, we see the Rams and the Vikings who have been in constant question of how they keep creating cap space. Create cap space. You could see Robinson get traded. The same way with what the Rams did with Jalen Ramsey. They moved on expensive players to be able to sign their, a future building player. So
yeah, I just think that a lot of times on Twitter you get a lot of pipe dreams, if you will, without people actually looking into the ramifications of that. Like Cam Newton when you've only got $13 million in cap space.
You get one rumor. You get one person that said Cam Newton would not be opposed to playing in Chicago.
Yeah,
well, I think most teams would be okay with playing with the a Super Bowl caliber defense and Allen Robinson as your number one receiver. I think most people will be okay with that.
Yep. All right, let's put a bow on that because we talked about that one to death. But good conversation. So I'm all about that. Let's go ahead and hit a beer review. We'll get into some waivers and some cuts, check some boxes, and go home.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, what'd you think of Dangerous Man?
I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure what I think. This is the first time that I've had a bracket. And for those that are just tuning in or those that have skipped over the beer preview, a bracket is a beer and a mead effectively mixed together. It's a beer with a lot of honey added to it. It's 9.3%, and it definitely drinks and smells like a 9.3% beer. I've let this thing warm up as I've gone, so the booze has definitely stuck out more. I think per their site there is notes of chocolate, or that dark chocolate which should be there. They call it a baker's chocolate, roast and sweet maltiness. They added graham crackers, marshmallows, vanilla, which is with the lactose, and cocoa nibs, which again will add into more of the chocolate base to it. And there's a lot of chocolate on there. There's also a weird off taste to it on the mouth, which I'm assuming is what comes with the dense honeydew that's being added to it. I haven't had enough brackets to kind of know what to expect from one. Interesting when I saw it. I don't get much of the lactose or the vanilla taste on it as much, but I think that also has to do with the beer warming up and more of the alcohol taste coming through. It would be something I'd try again. I wouldn't pay for the can size that I got because it only comes in the 750 can size. Those are crawler sizes. But if you haven't had a bracket before, or if you've had one and you've enjoyed one, I think this one would be a very interesting try for those out there.
All right. So I was drinking Chicken and Waffles Blonde from Earthbound Beer, which isn't made with chicken or waffles. There's a slight hint of maple to it, which I think leads into the waffle taste. Not heavy or harsh by any means. It just kind of lingers there. I almost get spices up front, like not salty, but almost like celery, if you will.
Okay.
I think celery salt is what I'd describe it, but it's not salty. Hold on. Yeah. I don't know. It lends to a little bit savory front, It's not super alcohol-y or anything like that. It's definitely a unique taste. Again, you normally don't expect like celery salt taste in a beer. And like I said, the maple backbone is not bad. It's unique. I wouldn't consider it fantastic. I wouldn't consider it terrible. It is just definitely unique. So, and I don't know that it reminds me of chicken and waffles because, I don't know how you'd impart chicken taste in a beer. Or I do know how, but it scares me to even think that somebody would do that. So, overall, good job. I think that they executed something unique that kind of sort of is reminiscent of what they were going for.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
Let's go ahead and hit some beer goggles.
Beer goggles.
All right, we'll go ahead and try to keep this short. My first waiver claim is Jonathan Williams. You could also make an argument for Jordan Wilkins, but with Wilkins still banged up, Nyheim Hines being mostly a pass-catching back, and Williams going for 13 and 114 over this past week. You might as well go ahead and take a shot on him, trying to find running backs on a barren waiver wire. If he continues to be productive, he could end up sliding in and being, at least a splitting time with Wilkins. 147 scrimmage yards this past game. And he's virtually available everywhere because nobody was expecting Jonathan Williams to be relevant.
Yeah, I think he's at 0.0%.
I'm pretty sure. All right. Darius Guice, who had a relatively successful return.
I'm actually going to flip it because I put Nyheim Hines here. So I figure we'll talk about both the Colts running backs. Because I think Hines is, I like Jonathan Williams, but at least we know that Hines' role as a pass catching back, and we've seen his role increase when Marlon Mack wasn't involved in the offense, or if the game script flips to more of a pass or pace heavy team or game. Excuse me. They get the Texans, Titans, Bucks, Saints, and Panthers to end their fantasy season. We know of at least 3 of those teams: the Texans, Bucks, and Saints can push pace, which could rise Hines' floor. Well, he's never going to be the in-between the tackles guy, and he shouldn't because he's terrible at it. What he could make up with that is the amount of targets he could see, especially with all the pass catchers that are out right now. Relying on a running back that is very, very reliable out of the backfield is a very positive thing to have. I also still like Jonathan Williams.
Yep, I do as well. All right, go ahead and talk about Darius, guys, since I just teased it.
That's fine. We expect his role to keep increasing as he gets up to game speed, as he keeps taking on hits, and as the Washington kind of figures out the rest of their future here. The future does not include Adrian Peterson and Wendell Smallwood. Guice was second on the team in snaps, which doesn't really mean much as all 3 running backs were involved. But he was second in touches, and he was 7 carries, just 2 behind Peterson, and he was 1 target behind Wendell Smallwood, and Guice got to show off what people love about him so much, and that his explosiveness and his after the catch ability. I fully expect to see more Guice, and that's going to lead into one of my cuts this week.
All right. I am looking at Bo Scarborough, which kind of goes right hand in hand with Jonathan Williams. The Lions are looking for an answer in the running game, and he actually provided a little bit of a boost. Letterman carries his 14, going for 55 yards and a touchdown on his first NFL action. McKissick and Ty Johnson were virtually limited to, absolutely nothing. There's opportunity to be had here, and he's virtually not owned anywhere. So, you're looking for a running back boost, but Scarborough's another shot that you can take to go along with Nyheim Hines, Jonathan Williams, or even Darius Guice. Even though I think Guice has the most insulated touch volume out of any of the 3.
Yes. Well,
maybe.
It depends how cute Washington wants to get with Smallwood and AP.
All right, you're taking a shot at a guy that has, actually, if I had looked, I would have recommended this too because he's produced like Will Dissly in fill-in duty.
I mean, he's a tight end 1 over the last 3 weeks. We're talking about Jacob Hollister.
And he didn't even play last week.
He's still a tight end 1 probably. He's the starting tight end on an offense that wants to utilize them in high value target situations. We know what Russell Wilson looks for. We know that it's not just he's going to funnel targets to one guy. Hollister had 8 targets, I believe, or 8 catches against San Francisco, and that's supposed to be a quote-unquote terrible matchup for tight ends. So I don't even think you have to worry so much about a bad matchup. It's more so his role in the offense is what insulates his value. I don't expect him. He's not the next Kittle. He's not a guy that you can consider a top 3 tight end. But in the tight end landscape with a lot of shit always shifting, a guy like Jacob Hollister, who's got a role on a high-powered offense that needs and utilizes his tight ends within the red zone is all you're looking for tight ends. He needs to be more than 15% owned. If you need a tight end out there, or just pick him up to block somebody else from getting him. Go out and get him.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to talk about somebody that is terribly underappreciated right now, apparently, and is very, very.
It's
quietly,
good for reasons too.
he's very, very quietly put together a nice stretch, which is always dangerous. Devontae Parker, just 44.7% owned. He's been over 50 yards every week but 2 this season. He's got 34 targets over his last 4 games, 2 touchdowns, and 240 receiving yards, and plus matchups to finish out the season. His next 4 against Cleveland, Philly, the Jets, and the Giants. So Devontae Parker, with Preston Williams going down, pretty much has all of the wide receiver target share in Miami. They're just 44.7% owned with touchdown upside. So no reason to not pick him up, have him as a 4th wide receiver around for a playoff run.
As long as nothing happens to Fitzmagic.
Yep.
Devontae Parker has finally been something.
Yeah. All right, let's get into cuts. I'll go ahead and start since, it's first off, Dan only has 2, and that's because it's hard to find cuts right now. Everything is pretty well chalk. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Robbie Anderson, 49.7% owned. He's got 1 great game all season. That was week 6. His target volume has been down each of the last 4 weeks, from 8 to 6 to 4 to just 3 last week. Just 1 touchdown on the year, and he's a clear second fiddle to Jamison Crowder and the tight ends in this offense. Hasn't blown up like people would thought. Of course, as soon as I say this, he's going to have another awesome playoff run because he seems to not do anything until then. But go ahead and cut bait with Robbie Anderson.
He's the wide receiver version of Derrick Henry.
Yep.
With not Derrick Henry this year, but Derrick Henry past.
Yeah, years past. All right, Adrian Peterson goes
AP. This goes
hand in hand with your guy Stick.
Yeah, so this goes hand in hand with guys. He was 3rd in snaps this past week, while he led the team in touches. It's clearly that his role is going to be diminished even more so with Geis's return. There's no reason to roster him, as most people who have a Washington starting running back probably not going to be in the playoff front. Maybe they will be. I guess it just depends on your team. But there's no reason to hold on to AP.
All right. Jared Goff is my cut, and this is a pretty easy one that goes without saying. He had another bad game against the Bears. Just did not look good. Now, granted, he was missing most of his receiving options. Robert Woods unexpectedly missed for personal reasons. Gerald Everett not 100%. Brandon Cooks out with a concussion. So he's basically relegated to Cooper Kupp, the other Michael Thomas. Not the good one.
Yeah.
And Todd Gurley and Tyler Higbee. So he's missing 3/5 of its offensive line. He hasn't been able to string together a good game in a while. He's got a tough matchup coming up, and then you can look at him as a streamer candidate, but you need the roster spot. There's no reason to hold on to Jared Goff, and I'd hope at this point you have a more consistent quarterback than him.
I hope you're not throwing Goff out there consistently. Yeah. I really do.
All right, OJ Howard.
We'll keep beating this drum until he's under our 40% threshold. He got surpassed. Not only did he get surpassed by Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate had 10 targets, or if not more. So this whole Bruce Arians doesn't use tight ends. He just doesn't like to use OJ Howard. So it's time to cut bait with them, because there's nothing to suggest that Howard is worth anything more than just a guy on the waiver pool.
Yep. All right. Sony Michel, and I talked about him at length earlier. He's just not been able to string together a whole lot of efficiency this year, despite some heightened passing numbers. I don't want to misconstrue that as the fact that his passing game is making him valuable, because it's really not. Incredibly touchdown dependent. And I think you can get some guys that have a little bit more floor right now than Sony Michel out there on the waiver wires that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I think it's time to start thinking about dropping name players that have struggled
all year
to kind of play defense against other teams that may want to use them.
Especially as we get into to handcuffs and stuff, because it's that time of year. We got week 12 coming up starting Thursday. And I mean that's it. 12 and 13 are the last 2 weeks of the regular fantasy football season for anybody. Well, unless you play in week 17, in which case we don't acknowledge you as a real fantasy league.
I mean, from weeks 12 through 14 is generally most people's last weeks before the playoffs.
Yeah,
some people
only have 2-round playoffs. I forgot about that, but yeah, still,
a lot of people are going to start picking up backups of their starters to kind of protect their running back positions. And a guy like Sony Michel, who just hasn't done a lot this year, aside for some touchdowns in some games, is a candidate to throw out there for somebody to just pick up and waste a draft space on, or waste a bench spot on.
Yep. All right, I got one Dynasty darling I want to throw a shout out to.
I saw it. Let's do it.
Dynasty darlings.
All right, this is going to go to Bills rookie Dawson Knox, who's actually managed to stay relatively healthy this season, knock on wood. Didn't see a whole lot of college productivity, especially in part because he was hurt a lot, and he was also on an offense with A.J. Brown, DeMarcus Lodge, and DK Metcalf. But 35 targets, 20 receptions, 279 yards, and 2 touchdowns to start his career over his first 10 games. And so he's right in line with Irv Smith as far as that productivity. But some other guys who have been right there in recent years. Mark Andrews, his first 10 games, 33 targets, 22 receptions, 263 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So Dawson Knox, slightly better than Mark Andrews was to start his career. George Kittle, 44 targets, but 28 receptions, 291 yards, and a touchdown. So again, Dawson Knox kind of right there. And then Rob Gronkowski, 20 receptions, 27 targets, 245 yards, and 6 touchdowns through his first 10 games. So some good company, and some guys that have either put together nice, in Gronk's case, Hall of Fame careers, or had nice starts to their careers in Kittle and Andrews, that Dawson Knox is running right along with through his first 10 games. And you could be looking at a buy low or a guy that you want to stash as a receiving candidate, especially in single tight end, especially as scarce as tight ends are. So Dawson Knox is a guy we're going to be watching the next couple of years as a potential breakout.
Yep. You need to, if you need one, either in single tight end leagues or especially in dual tight end leagues, Dawson Knox needs to be owned. Extremely athletic, and he's already in line with where he could be in terms of these Hall of Fame or potential Hall of Fame or soon to be Hall of Fame tight ends.
Yep, and I think that Mark Andrews is probably the closest comparison, except he's a little more athletic than Andrews.
Yeah, and it's at least Josh Allen has been consistently decent with this tight end.
Josh Allen's been very, very good recently too. So we'll be watching Dawson Knox close throughout the rest of the season. And he could be a guy we're talking about next year as a sleeper. So
I love it.
Get out ahead of that. All right, that is all we got for you this week. We'll be back on Wednesday to check the boxes and be mostly miserable as normal as we check the boxes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We do enjoy the Monday episodes. They have a little bit more banter and a little bit more freedom to talk about, Mitchell Trubisky for 40 minutes or whatever it is we want to talk about. So
Brian Hoyer 2.0.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the chicken and waffles and Earthbound and Dangerous Man. We will catch you guys on Wednesday. Dan, do you got any goodbyes to say?
No.
Right.
See you guys.
Beerfield Fantasy Football on Facebook, YouTube, Beerfield FF on Twitter. I'm at Hot BFF. He's at Thury BFF, and we are out.
Peace.